Welcome our next speaker, Dr. Brian Harris. He's a good friend of mine. He is a 2005 graduate of the University of Pacific School of Dentistry. He has a thriving practice in Phoenix, Arizona. He has a passion for technology and cosmetic dentistry and has really transformed the lives of his patients. Hundreds and hundreds of thousands of followers on social media. Please welcome to the stage, Dr. Brian Harris.
So for the last 2 days, we've talked a lot about this idea of the future of care and how we as dental professionals can better serve our patients at the highest level. I think it's really important that we stop and recognize, though, that the only way the future is different is if we make the necessary changes for that to happen. So I call these changes in both my personal life, my professional life, these are what I call pivot points. This is where you're cruising along, you're going down a certain path within your practice, your life, and then an opportunity presents itself and you have that decision to make. Do I continue to go down this path, or do I pivot and do I make a change? So one of the first times I can remember a pivot point like this in my life was in my dad's practice. So I grew up around dentistry. My dad's a dentist. When we were teenagers, there was 4 boys in my family, so my mom would send one of us off each week to work with dad, and we'd wake up at 5 in the morning and we'd go to the office. So the summer of 1993, this is my last year that I have to work at dad's office. I learned a lot in the process because it kind of gave me a front row seat to what dentistry was like. And I witnessed my dad. I think he liked what he did. I don't think he loved what he did. And then one day, a Patterson rep showed up at the office and handed him a pamphlet, and it was for the first live patient cosmetic course in dentistry. And I remember my dad kind of thinking about it, and it was a big investment. And so he was presented with that opportunity. Do I move, do I pivot, or do I keep doing what I've always done? So he pivots, he goes to the course. And what happened next was fascinating because he came back, he started dressing different, he started hiring consultants and having, a different culture in the practice. He threw away all his amalgam. This had completely transformed my dad's life, and he then went on to do amazing things in cosmetic dentistry. And so I think oftentimes we think about these pivots and we think about the difference it made in his life. We don't ever really think about the difference makes. So because of that, we all as kids had this front row seat to dad's transformation. And it's what made my brother Eric decide he wanted to be a dentist. I followed suit 2 years after him in dental school, and my brother Scott was 2 years after me. My brother Cameron opened a dental lab. So yes, it made a big difference in his life. But I think it's the difference makes that we don't ever really think about. The fact that he made that choice now has allowed all of us boys to experience something amazing in dentistry and go on to change the lives of many, many people through smile transformations. And so that was kind of the first, I would say, big pivot that I saw. So fast forward now, 2003. Those in the room that have ever hired an associate, so that decision from going private practice to now I have an associate, you remember how stressful that was because you want them to be busy. You don't want to hire someone and have them not be happy, but you also don't want to take away from what you're doing. So imagine that now, but you got 3 boys within a 5-year span all coming out of dental school. And again, here he is, he's at that decision. Do I pivot? Do I try to do something differently, or do I just keep what I'm doing and have them go off and do their own thing? So sure enough, again, Patterson rep shows up at the office. Note to self, stay away from Patterson reps this weekend or you're gonna buy a lot of stuff. But again, Patterson rep, right? It was a good Patterson rep actually, now that I think about it. Shows up, pamphlet, but not for a course, this time for something a little bit different. So it was the first CEREC RedCam. 2003 at the time. So, let's remember, CEREC initially wasn't all that it is today. There was a lot of questions, concerns around it. And the greatest thing is that it wasn't that my dad wanted to do Cerix in his practice, but he had the vision and the ability to recognize that this is something that he could invest in that could be for us boys, that we could become experts at in the practice. And so, imagine him going in and doing that hygiene exam and the difference of saying, well, yeah, you need a crown. And, my son, who you saw working here for the last, 10 years as a teenager, is now going to be the one to do it versus, yeah, the tooth needs a crown. So you can schedule with me in 2 weeks, or if you want to go through the process and only get numb once and not have to wear temporary and have it done the same day, Eric is an expert at this. Like, he's a technology genius. And so I think that was the first time we recognized the power of technology within a practice. It went from the CEREC. We were at the Dentsply Sirona meeting, back in the day when they announced the first Galileos. We purchased it on the spot. We then went on to buy the Blue Cam, the OmniCam, the Prime Scan. It's just been a big part of our practice ever since. And so another pivot point that allowed us to shift the way that we were doing things. Moving on to 2017. So from that time, we grew the practice from maybe I think we were at 1.5 million in revenue to about probably about 4.5 at this time in 2017. Just loving what we were doing, but personally, I was getting a little burnt out. We were super busy doing a lot of great general dentistry, and I call this moment, this pivot, the awakening, because it was I probably think the first time that I ever really woke up and realized that the way that we do things is broken. I remember this particular day I came home and I was talking to my wife about how the day went, and typical questions of how was your day, and I said it was awesome. I did 2 Smile Design cases. I sat a case and had 2 consults, and that was a big deal for me. I'd always done a high amount of cosmetic dentistry, but maybe 1 case every 2 weeks. And so I was telling her about it. I'm like, man, if I could just do that every day, that would be amazing. And her response to me at the time was, well, then why don't you just do that? And I think we all know it's not that easy. You can't just only do the things that you love. And so I was trying to explain that to her, and that's when she said something to me that really changed my whole view on how we connect with our patients. She said, Brian, she's like, no, the problem is everybody knows you're a dentist. Nobody knows what you do. And I said, what do you mean? She said, well, think about it. You've got people you went to high school with, people that live in the neighborhood, people that we go to church with. All these people, they know that you're a dentist. They have no idea what you do in your practice because they've never seen it in action. And so she's like, you should start posting on social media. Now, guys, this is before it was cool to post teeth pictures. This is when it was still weird. But I know some of you remember those days, and as a dentist, it was scary because everybody's judgmental of everybody. It's just kind of how it is. But I got out of my own way and I started posting on social media. So pivot for me, huge pivot. Because within a matter of 2 weeks, things changed. Within a matter of 2 weeks, somebody reached out to me, and I didn't know what I was doing. I was posting just random pictures, and then I got this message. Dr. Harris, I'm hoping that you could help me. 22 years old, go to school at ASU, a time in my life where I should have total self-confidence, but I don't. I'm self-conscious. I don't go out anymore. Been to 4 different consults. And I thought, I'll be darned, my wife was right. There are people out there that now know what I do, and so they're reaching out. And my natural inclination at this time was what? Message her back and say, hey, call the office. I'd love to get you in for a consult. Why? Because we don't give prices over the phone, right? We want people to come in and meet with us in person so that we can build a connection, so we're not just a commodity. But I also realized, wait, I feel like this person kind of knows me already because I'm posting on social media. And so I thought, what if I reached out and asked her to send me a smile photo? So it was the first time I'd ever asked for someone to send me their smile photo, over social media. but she did. And from that photo, I was able then to look at it and say like, oh, I can help her. And so again, my next inclination was to message her back and say, yeah, I can help you. And then I thought, you know what? If the whole purpose of bringing people in for a consult is just to get in front of them so they can see who we are and what we do, what if I got her to send her email, and if I could just like send her a video and explain these things? So this is the first video consult I ever recorded. Huge pivot for me, right? When I talk about video consults, virtual consults, I'm not talking about live, back and forth with the patient. No, I'm talking about somebody sends you a photo, you gather your thoughts and you say, okay, how can I help them? And then you just record yourself sharing those things with them as if they were right there in front of you. The difference is there's no barriers. You don't have to wait for them to come in and see you. They don't have to take time off work, travel across town. Now, like, you just show up wherever they are at. And I remember in that first consult, just the first words out of my mouth were like, Kendall, I can help you. I can help you, and there's a few different ways to do this. I understand why there's confusion. This is somewhat complicated. These are your options. This is what it's going to cost. When you're ready, I would love to see you. But, take the time you need to think things over. Like, this is a big deal. It's your smile. Like, you just let me know when you're ready. A couple weeks later, she shows up at the office. Do you understand what it feels like when you have a consult? You have a new patient in your office. They've already seen your face. They've heard your words. They already know what the treatment costs. Just the mere fact that they're there in the office, they've already accepted treatment. And so, you go from 30 to 50% case acceptance. Like, we've got like documented case after case after case of hundreds of offices throughout the US, like 87% case acceptance on high dollar cases. Why? Because you're making it really easy for people to do business with you. 2 weeks later, she shows up at the office. Probably 2 months later, this is Kendall posting on social media. Thank you at Dr. Brian Harris, tagging me. You've changed my life forever. I woke up, guys. I realized that the way we do things is broken. We make it so difficult for people to do business with us. Why? I don't know why. We live in a time, like we talk about the future of care. Geez, like 5 minutes to show up for somebody powerfully, not get paid for it, and just say like, hey, I can help you. These are your options. And being able to do that and being totally comfortable and okay with like, if they don't move forward with treatment, that's okay. But you're just there to help people. You want to know how to go from like doing what you love now once every other week to doing it every single day. This is the last like 6 years have been a dream for me. We do 2 to 3 cases a day, booked out 5 months. Like, it's completely changed the way that I practice. And I'm not the greatest cosmetic dentist, but what I have realized is that I just make it really easy for people to work with me. And when you can build that trust and transparency, everything else follows. So I want you for a minute to imagine your sales process. Like, what does it look like in your practice? From your marketing efforts to that first phone call. Who's answering the phone? What do they say? How do they say it? When they show up at your office, is there a tour? When it's time to present treatment, how do you do it? What are the tactics you use when people like aren't ready to move forward with treatment? What are the things that the consultants have taught you to say? Like, think about that entire process start to finish, then take that, put it aside, and don't ever think about that again. I want you to start thinking about the patient's buying process. What do they want? Got a patient that needs an all-on-4 case? Okay, what do they really want? You know how much confusion there is around that type of dentistry? They really just want to know, can I trust you? How much is this going to cost me? What are my options? And what does the process look like? When you can stop focusing on the sales process and just focus really on the buyer's process, it becomes fun. It takes all of the stress out of it. You're not having to sell anything anymore. You're just there to serve people. And people will recognize it. They'll see it. My sales process now looks like this. I put content out for people to see. I help educate them on what's possible. I give them examples of other people like them that have gone through the process, and then I drive them to a video consult. When the consults come through, I take time, sometimes at the beginning of the day, sometimes at the end of the day. I just sit down, I make sure that I'm in a good mental state, and I just give them my best for a few minutes. Share with them what's possible, invite them to come in and meet with me in the practice. So when you recognize that process and how well it works, then you're like, okay, if that worked on Instagram, why wouldn't I do that on Facebook? Why wouldn't I do that on TikTok, on Instagram, on my website, everything? You start to realize that there's a more efficient way of doing things. And so that's what the process looks like today. 2023, thank you. Thank you for the one clap, I appreciate that. We're here together. This is great. I could tell my story all day, and I love it because it's impacted my life in such a massive way. It really doesn't matter right now at this point. We're here today. You're here. You took time to be here. What's your move? How are you going to pivot? I can't answer that for you. Maybe it's buying that first CAD/CAM machine. Maybe it's buying the Combi. Maybe you have all those things, and it's time to invest in DS Core. Maybe it's time to make that kind of move. And I know there's a lot of chatter right now about the economy and what's happening in the world. I think right now, now is not the time to play small. Now's the time to play big. Now's the time to make your moves. You just need to decide what that is for you. And yeah, we can talk about how much does it cost, because it all costs money. But I think really the conversation is what's the cost of not changing? What's the cost, truly? What's the cost of not changing? What if my dad had never taken that pamphlet and taken the course? Where would he be today? Where would I be? What if I never recorded that virtual consult? What would my life look like? And the cost of not changing, oftentimes, I think almost all of the time, is so much greater than the cost of investing in yourself. So my challenge to you, make a pivot. It's time to pivot. If you want things different in your life, if you want things in your life you've never had, you've got to start moving in ways you've never moved. It's just the way it works. Thank you, guys.